This is the former Łódź ghetto. Unlike the Warsaw ghetto, for example, where very little has survived, if someone could travel from 1942 to today, then much would be recognisable. Many of the buildings are the same today as they were then. Before World War I, Łódź was very prosperous, and this wealth can be seen today in many of the palaces and even factory buildings which have been renovated in the past 25 years. This wealth was based around the textile industry, and Łódź became one of the most industrialised cities in the Russian Empire, only surpassed by Saint Petersburg. Workers came to Łódź from many places. Many of these people were Jewish. In 1939, there were 233,000 Jews living in Łódź, making up over 1/3 of the total population. As from the 8th of February 1940, the Jews of Łódź were forced to live in a ghetto in the northern part of the city by the Nazi occupiers. The ghetto was isolated from the rest of the city on the 30th of April 1940. Previously, this part of Łódź had been a working-class district where approximately 2/3 of the population had been Jewish. Non-Jews were forced out, whilst Jews were brought in from other parts of not only Łódź, but also other areas. The district contained 2,332 houses, which held around 28,400 residential rooms. Following more transports to the ghetto, the population density in 1942 rose to 42,587 people per square kilometre, and one room had on average 6 or 7 inhabitants. Initially, there were around 140,000 people living in the ghetto. The Jewish population of Łódź had fallen through people escaping to other parts of Poland following the Nazi occupation, and people either were forced to leave or they went of their own accord. From the 16th of October to the 4th of November 1941, around 5,000 people were brought here from Austria, 5,000 from Bohemia and Moravia, 600 from Luxembourg, and 10,000 from Germany. Around 5,000 people were also deported here from nearby Polish towns such as Pabianice, Konstantinów, Aleksandrów, Główno, Orzechów, and Brzeziny. Towards the end of 1941, about 5,000 Sinti and Roma were brought here from the Burgenland, an area on the border of Austria and Hungary. In 1942, nearly 20,000 Jews were sent here from Germany, the Benelux countries, and Prague, bringing the total amount imprisoned here to over 200,000 people at its peak. One of the people brought here in 1941 was Max Hertz. He came from Cologne, where he was a printer. He came to Łódź with his family and his 9-year-old daughter. On the 23rd of October 1941, he managed to escape from the ghetto, and as a German-speaking German with nothing to give him away as being Jewish, he might have made it. However, he had not discarded the Star of David, wearing of which was compulsory for Jews. He got to the station, but when he tried to buy a ticket, presumably reaching for his money, the Star of David fell out of his pocket. This led to an identity check by police officers and consequently his arrest. He was transferred to the Central Prison for Jews, where, after a stay of several weeks, his execution was ordered. The date of the execution is not clear. Ghetto diarist Oskar Rosenfeld, who worked in the ghetto archives, places the date of the execution as Friday the 20th of February 1942. Almost all other sources put it as being Saturday the 21st of February 1942, so we are not clear as to the date. At 1700 hours on the day before the execution, the building department got an order for a gallows to be erected on Fischplatz by 7 in the morning of the next day. Precise specifications were given on what was to be used, including wooden beams and heavy iron hooks. A man from Germany was entrusted with the job, and he was a close friend of the condemned man. He finished the job within the time limit. The Nazis were so pleased with the work he had done that they placed another order for a set of gallows designed to hang 12 people at one time. A large crowd was ordered to attend a meeting the next day. They didn't know why they were to be there, they just had to be there. The time for the gathering was set at 9 in the morning. The weather was bitter with a biting wind and the sky was clear. For people already weakened by hunger and disease, it was an unpleasant experience. Possibly they did not realize what was happening until they got to the place of execution. Shown where to stand, on the orders of the Jewish police, men stood at the front, women at the back. By 9, the square was filled with people. In this photograph, we can see a public execution in the Łódź ghetto. It might have been this one, or it might have been another. That we do not know. By the time they were all standing around the gallows, they must have known what was about to happen. Oscar Rosenfeld writes that several women fainted at the sight. Others fell into convulsive sobbing. Several of the men managed to send some of the women back home or took them secretly to nearby apartments. Those who wanted to go back later found the street blocked off. Then orders were made to seal the surrounding area. Several SS men in field grey uniforms appeared. At a corner of the square, soldiers with mounted machine guns kept the crowd in check. One of the SS warned of the most severe consequences for anyone who tried to leave. At around 10:30, after a wait of about 90 minutes in the biting cold, the victim appeared to the crowd, flanked by soldiers in field grey uniforms. He was wearing a short winter jacket with no collar, and his neck was exposed to the cold. As he was brought to the gallows, there was silence. The victim shivered in the cold. His overcoat was taken from him. He folded his hands. He walked up to the steps to the scaffold, where 2 Jewish policemen stood beside him, and behind him a third man prepared the rope. But it seems as though he failed to prepare it properly. One of the German guards took the rope from him and prepared it himself. The silence and fear appears to have got the better of Max Hertz. He asked sadly, "Why don't you let me live?" They were his last words. According to witnesses, he appeared to die quite quickly. The SS gave a symbol that the crowd could disperse. One of the people in the crowd was the wife of Max Hertz. She didn't know what was going to happen until she saw her husband. The body was left hanging over the Sabbath. This served as a warning to anyone else who was thinking of fleeing the ghetto. This was the first public execution in the Łódź ghetto. Others were to follow. By the time the Red Army reached Łódź in January 1945, less than 1,000 Jewish people remained in the city. Most of the others had died from either hunger and hunger-related illnesses in the ghetto, or were murdered in the gas vans at Chełmno nad Nerem, or in the gas chambers at Auschwitz. Thank you for listening to this today. I have a number of other videos related to the Holocaust. As a historian, my speciality is the Holocaust, so in that case you might be interested to subscribe, then you'll know when I'm uploading things. In any case, I upload a video every Friday at 2000 hours Central European time.